class, and welcome back. For today's activity, we're setting a goal of taking an animal, selecting it out, and arranging it in the scene so that the animal looks really out of place, super oversized, but really is integrated with the background. To do this, we've given you a few options. You can choose any of the sets, you can mix and match animals with backgrounds provided, or you can find your own if you have an animal in your vision and a background you like to use. Only thing is just keep in mind the quality of the picture, that is not blurry, and also the perspective of your animal in your background. For example, if you have a background that's a side profile, maybe you also want an animal in the side profile. Just something to consider. Now, just like always, selections are going to be really important to us. So I'm going to choose the elephant and the forest, the first set here, and just hide the remainder of them. I'm going to activate my elephant layer, zoom in, and I'm going to spend a few minutes making a very precise selection. Once I've made a selection, since I'm using the pen tool, I just have to hit make selection on the top. Now I have a selection. I would highly recommend, again, going to select, refine edge. My elephant has no fur, so it's a little different. But even then, if I notice I'm missing a spot, remember that white we paint for the parts we want to keep, and gray is what you want to paint on the edges of your animal where you would have fur. In this case, again, the elephant has no fur, so it may not be necessary. Now this has put my image on a mask because I set it up as such. This is where we're going to ask for your second check-in of the day. The first should just be showing us the images you chose. And then this one is going to let us know that you've made a good selection. Now, what we want to consider is the size, location, and position of our animal. So let's take a few minutes and figure out where we want this elephant to be, or whatever animal you've chosen. I want it to be flipped the other way around, so I'm going to do all my transformations. All your transformations are located under Edit, Transform. You can do a lot of things here if you want to pull the perspective a little bit, if you want to just rotate it, distort it. You have a lot of options. Now, especially with the image I chose, the elephant's legs are chopped off at the end. So I want to work on figuring out how to blend this image into the background. And I want the elephant in the scene to be integrated in some way. You're going to add a mask, if you don't have one already, to your animal and start hiding parts of the animal that would be behind a component of your scene. What I mean by that is if your scene has some trees, a hammock, a house, right, your animal should be behind something. We're going to ask for you to hide your animal behind at least one component of your scene. So like a tree trunk. In this case, if I hide this elephant overlaps on these two tree trunks here. So here on the right and here on the left. So those would be good places for me to hide the elephant. So the elephant looks like it's a little further back in the scene and therefore will look more integrated into the scene. To do that, you have two options. You can either hide this layer, select the area of the tree that you know you're going to use and use a selection to help you out, or you can paint with the brush. I'm going to demo out both of them. So I'm actually going to take my forest layer, activate it, and spend a few minutes making a really good selection of the tree. Okay, now that I have a selection of the tree, I'm going to go back to my mask where my animal's at. So I'm turning on the elephant layer. I'm going to select the mask I put. The reason why we're making a selection is sometimes it's really hard to be super precise with your brush. So some people might find this technique a little more beneficial. You can activate your brush. We paint with black to conceal. So we can simply take our brush tool, make sure we're on black. And because we have a selection, I can only paint inside the selection. So it's kind of easy to make sure that I don't mess up. Another method you could do instead of making a selection first is that you can simply paint with your brush. So I recommend lowering the opacity of the elephant if you're going to do this technique so you can see behind it. Then zoom in really close, paint with your brush, and try to paint away the tree. Right now it doesn't look like much. When I bring my opacity back, it should kind of pop out that tree there. Both methods end with similar results. You just have to know your comfort level. And in this case, now the animal looks like it's behind the tree. Now you have some optional steps that really elevate this design so that the animal looks integrated with the scene. The first optional step is you can use some retouching tools to kind of edit the forest or the background you've chosen. So I really don't like that there's a tree trunk right down here because now the animal looks like it's like on a tree trunk. So I'm going to use a retouching tool to tweak my background, and you can do this for yours too, especially if the animal looks a little out of place. So I'm going to make sure I'm on my background layer. I'm going to use the patch tool for this. I'm just going to select the area and drag the area I want it to replace with, and now I'm going to just slowly remove this tree trunk. The next optional step is that this image has a little fog in it, and I think that's going to help me because right now those elephant legs don't look very good. So I'm going to go in. First thing I'm going to do with this option is kind of slowly fade away the elephant legs by using a brush. I'm going to go to my mask, activate my brush tool, paint with black to conceal, but I'm going to just paint with a very soft brush and just make the legs kind of fade away a little bit. But it still looks like he's kind of like a ghost elephant. So we're going to introduce some extra fog to make his feet blend into the image. So you can do this by making a new layer right on top, painting with white, and just having a really low opacity. So this setting right up here, keep it super low and paint with a really nice large soft brush, and you can create the illusion of some fog. I even downloaded some fog brushes. We've shown you how to download brushes before. And then the last thing you're going to do to tie this image into its background is add an adjustment layer. If you want the elephant to just have similar tones to this image, right, you can select your elephant mask, right, add an adjustment layer and maybe selective color. Another thing you can do is to add a color lookup adjustment layer, and that's going to tie the whole thing together. It's also an adjustment layer down here. We've used it before. We're going to hit color lookup, and we can choose any of the ones we want. Remember to hit that drop down arrow, look through these, and you'll be surprised how unifying this effect can be, especially if you find that your images look really different. So you can play around with these, try a few of them out, see what you come up with. And that's the last way you can tie your image together. When you're done, you're going to export this as a JPEG. You're also going to provide a screenshot of your layers panel. If you want an opportunity for an extension or for some extra credit, you can include a secondary animal into your scene, or you can make a second layout with a different animal and a different background completely. Now, for this assignment, we're looking process over product. We really want you to take your time with each step, find a way to blend your animal into your scene. Don't let it look, like it's hanging somewhere, floating somewhere. You really want to think about how the animal is integrated into the scene for the effect to look good. Good luck.